Hi, I'm Justin Hodge, and today we're going to take a look at social work and social justice policy frameworks. This slide explores 4 different social work, social policy lenses that you may use in the field. Social workers approach policy in a different way from many people from other fields. For example, someone approaching a policy analysis from economics may focus on the bottom line for how much money is spent. With social work, we would take a look at human dignity and other social justice types of components. To start off, if we looked at empowerment and strength-based types of policies, we would look for ways in which we can help people use the strengths that they have to make the most out of their lives. Exploring policy through an equity, diversity, and inclusion lens would entail ensuring that all people have basic rights. All people, regardless of where they're from, any other personal characteristics, all people are afforded the same type of rights. Exploring policy through a human dignity and human rights lens entails using policy to fight discrimination to ensure that people have equitable access to all resources and services. Priority should be given to people from marginalized communities or people that are typically oppressed. And the final lens on this slide explores interconnectedness and complexity. No one lens can solve any social problem because social problems are very complex. And so none of these lenses are mutually exclusive. You could utilize any combination of these along with lenses from other fields. This slide explores a set of questions that are frequently used when you're thinking about social welfare policy. Typically, the most important question to think about is who is helped by the policy and who has access to the policy. If you're fighting for social justice, typically you're not going to try to advocate for policies that already help the privileged. We also want to look at the implications of the policy. A policy frequently does more than what it was intended to do. We have to look at the outside ramifications of side effects of the policy, for example. We also want to look at the types of policies that promote economic and social equalities. So for example, if we were to explore a tax reform, does the tax reform assist those who are privileged or those who have been typically oppressed or who have lower access to resources? And does a policy honor human dignity and worth? Is a policy able to give people rights that may have not had rights? In the example of same-sex marriage, for example. It's also essential to look at whether a policy attempts to treat the symptoms of a problem or to tackle the root cause of the problem. We want to aim to eliminate whatever the true problem is rather than treating the cause and kicking the can down the road. This slide provides several examples of policies and then what looking at it through a social work lens might look like. So for example, if a policy that gives individuals the ability to self-determine how to use government food subsidy dollars, if we were to look at that through a social work lens, essentially it's a policy that allows people to be self-determined and to use a strength-based perspective. In the example of a policy that promotes safe and accessible water for communities, this asserts that water is a basic human right. And as in the previous slide, when we talked about using policy to tackle the root cause of an issue rather than a symptom of an issue, we can typically see that in policies that promote quality education as an anti-poverty strategy. The social work lens here explains that if people have access to quality education, they can get out of a cycle of poverty. This promotes treating the problem itself rather than providing services for people that are already in poverty. And when we look at any kind of child welfare policy that affects a particular group, we want to be careful that we're promoting equity. So if we're promoting equity in situations in which we are helping to bring people to a level playing field. For example, when we think about equity versus equality, if we have a pizza and we want to split the pizza between 2 people, and one person is really hungry and the other person just ate, giving each person half of the pizza would be equal, but that wouldn't be equitable. The equitable thing to do would be to give the person that's hungrier more of the pizza. So there are a variety of skills that you need to engage in socially just policy advocacy, and this slide goes over those. Many of the skills that you would need for any social work career are the same kinds of skills that you would need for examining social policy. So for example, you want to be reflexive. You need to be able to reflect on your own experiences, your background, and how that may influence your own assumptions. You also want to take a look from other perspectives. You need to be able to, even if you disagree with a particular policy, you need to be able to take the perspective of the person that wrote it, try to understand where they're coming from with that kind of policy. You need to be able to critically examine power and understanding what kinds of policies may benefit different people, who has the power in different situations, just as you would in any other kind of social work situation. Naturally, you'll need some critical thinking skills because you'll need to think about different possibilities and ways in which you can change policy. You also need an eye for examining the root causes of certain problems. You don't want to be on the end of the table where you're helping to craft a policy that sounds great on paper, but then has several unintended negative consequences. As you look at these skills, take a moment to reflect on how you've used them in your current work and how you might use them in work that you aspire to do in the future. How can you be more conscious of using these skills in your own policy work if this is the type of career you hope to pursue?